The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the low hum of neon lights flickering above the rain-washed street. Inside the small roadside diner, a young waitress named Emily wiped down the counter with trembling hands, trying to steady herself against the exhaustion that clung to her bones. She had worked double shifts all week, barely scraping enough tips to cover rent for the crumbling apartment she shared with her younger brother. Life hadn't been kind to her, but she had learned to wear a smile, to push through the pain, to believe, somehow, that kindness still mattered. That night, however, kindness was the last thing she received. 3 men, drunk and loud, staggered through the diner's doors. They didn't come for food, they came for power. Their laughter was sharp, cruel, echoing across the almost empty room. They threw themselves into a booth, slamming the table with their fists, calling for service in words dripping with venom. Emily swallowed her fear, approached with her notepad, and tried to stay polite, but their eyes weren't hungry for burgers or coffee. Their hunger was darker. When one of them spat out the words, "Serve us, Btch," it cut deeper than any blade. The diner fell silent, the 2 elderly regulars in the corner shifting uncomfortably, the cook frozen behind the pass-through window. Emily's cheeks burned with shame and anger, but she lowered her eyes and tried to keep going. Friends, before we dive deeper into this emotional journey, I want to pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of good people standing up against cruelty, please take a second to like this video, share it with others, subscribe to Kind Fire Stories, and leave a comment about what kindness means to you. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive, reaching hearts that need them most. Emily forced herself to stay professional, though her hands shook as she set down the glasses of water they demanded. One of the thugs shoved the glass back, spilling water across her apron, and roared with laughter. The others joined in, pounding the table, making a show of her humiliation. She felt trapped, cornered in her own workplace, and her heart screamed for someone, anyone, to step in. But nobody moved. Fear froze the room, and the only sounds were their cruel words and the muffled sobs Emily tried to swallow. She thought about her brother at home, waiting for her to return, counting on her strength. She thought about her late mother's voice, always reminding her that dignity was not something anyone could take unless she gave it away. But tonight, she felt her dignity slipping through her fingers. She turned, her eyes wet, silently praying for this nightmare to end. And then, as if summoned by fate itself, the bell above the diner's door jingled. The sound was ordinary, yet it carried the weight of salvation. A group of bikers stepped inside, their boots heavy against the tiled floor, their leather jackets dripping with rain. The thugs turned, their laughter faltering just slightly as they measured the newcomers. These weren't men to be mocked. They carried themselves with a quiet power, the kind forged from loyalty and battles no stranger would understand. The leader, a tall man with a silver beard and eyes that burned with unspoken stories, looked from the thugs to Emily. He saw her fear, her shaking hands, and he understood everything without a word being spoken. The air shifted. The bikers didn't need to raise their voices or brandish fists. Their presence alone was enough to tilt the balance. They slid into booths, ordered their meals with a kindness Emily hadn't felt all night, and gave her the one thing she needed most, respect. The thugs, suddenly unsure of themselves, tried to keep up their bravado, tossing more insults in her direction, but the bikers' eyes followed them like hawks circling prey. Slowly, the cruelty lost its edge. Intimidation doesn't last long when real strength walks into the room. But what touched Emily's heart most wasn't the silence the bikers enforced, nor the way the thugs shrank back under their watchful eyes. It was the little things. The way the silver-bearded man said, "Thank you," when she refilled his coffee. The way another biker slipped a 20 into the tip jar without fanfare. The way they made her feel seen, not as a servant, not as someone weak, but as a person who mattered. For the first time that night, she felt her spine straighten. Her voice steadied. Her dignity began to return. The thugs eventually slithered out, their swagger broken, their laughter hollow. They left behind nothing but spilled water and the bitter stench of their arrogance. Emily watched them go, her chest tight with relief, but her eyes filled with tears when she turned back to the bikers. They weren't saints. They weren't there to play heroes. But in their simple act of standing by her side, they reminded her that goodness still had power in a world too often ruled by cruelty. When her shift finally ended, she stepped outside into the cool night air. The rain had stopped, and the world felt washed clean. The bikers were mounting their bikes, engines rumbling like thunder, ready to disappear into the highway darkness. She whispered a thank you, her voice cracking, and though they didn't stay for long speeches or acknowledgments, one of them raised a hand in farewell. It was enough. In that moment, Emily knew she had witnessed something rare, an act of unspoken solidarity, a reminder that in the darkest nights, even strangers can carry the light. And from that night forward, Emily carried herself differently. Not because the bikers had saved her, but because they had shown her she was worth saving. She walked into each new day with a little more strength, a little more belief that cruelty would never fully win, not as long as people chose to stand for each other. Dear friends, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the importance of kindness and courage, I ask you from the bottom of my soul, please like this video, share it with others who need encouragement, and subscribe to Kindfire Stories for more powerful tales of humanity. Your support helps keep these stories alive, reaching those who may be fighting silent battles of their own. And before we end, I have a special request. Please comment below what this story meant to you, or share a moment when someone's kindness gave you strength. Your words may be the light another person desperately needs.